Welcome to the virtual book launch, From Chaos to Creativity, The Art and Practice of EnergyWorks, with KimBellisimo, and hosting is Val
I
Fishman.
have to say, I'm so excited to be here. I mean, I heard somebody else already say how much they love Kim, and I do as well. And this book, I just is already life changing. Just working with Kim over the past 15 years has been life changing. And so I was absolutely thrilled when she invited me to co-create this session with her. I know we have a special guest of Kim, Susie Arnett, that has joined us tonight. If you're okay with that, I wanted to give the floor to you for just a few minutes to say anything you're inspired to share about either your work with Kim or this book, or anything you'd like to share before we kick off tonight's session.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh God, I've known Kim for years and just love her to death. And I feel like Kim has so many gifts, but I think one of them really is her ability to see clearly. And I think, in terms of my work, she's been so amazingly helpful to me because I feel like whenever I have a situation that I'm not sure about, and I talk to her about it, her ability to see the energy and what's actually happening is so amazing and so helpful. And then the work that she does energetically to like shift what's happening has just been incredibly powerful. And just I've seen so many changes in my life over the years working with Kim and knowing her. And I always say she's like an angel in my life. And she always gives me such good advice and good work. And yeah, it's just been incredibly powerful. So happy, so proud of you, Kim, and putting this book out and sharing what you're doing with the world. It needs it right now, right? It's a lot of stuff going on. So there's a lot of invisible layers happening right now. And so I feel like people like Kim who really can work the energy are really needed at this time. So I'm so glad to be here and to support you and everything you're doing.
Great. Thank you, Susie.
Yeah, thanks, Susie. All right, well, I think we have critical mass, Kim. So before we get started, in the true spirit of your work and everything that you do you want to set the space for us, set the frequency of the space? And as you do that, for those of you that are not so comfortable having your video on, maybe you want to close your eyes, feel free to turn your video off for this, and then we'll cue you when to turn the video back on so we can see each other. Sound good?
Great. So we're going to do an energy activation tool, and this EnergyWorks tool is about setting space. It's setting your frequency, and this is a great tool that you can use starting your day. It's very simple. Or if you lose your space or find that somehow you feel anxious or depressed, or if your attention is just outside of you and you're starting to respond or react to situations, this you can do in just a few minutes, and you'll start to experience your space in a whole new way. So go ahead and just close your eyes. And if you can just be aware of the space around you. And for a moment, just let your attention go to wherever it takes you. Maybe it goes to a work project you need to do. Maybe it goes in the future. Or maybe somebody that's bothering you. So to change it, focus your attention within your heart. And the mere fact of placing your attention within as opposed to the external starts to set your space. When you focus on the heart, just be aware of your breath. It starts to create a field around you. You can just imagine this as your bubble. And by focusing within, your energy and your attention and your information start to come back to you. So just imagine yourself being filled up like a glass of water. And you can imagine your heart like a thermostat. And it's up to you to choose what temperature that you want to set it at. that vibration of how you want to feel. Set it at peace or harmony. And as you're dialing in that temperature, just start to tune into this vibration. You can imagine this frequency as a color, that peace and harmony. Maybe imagine green or blue. And when you focus on the heart, your heart moves in waves. I call it the heart wave. The energy starts to move out like a wave to the edge of your space, which is about 6 feet around you. And the flow is moving out and back. You don't even have to think about it. Just allow the heart to move your energy out to the edge of your space. And the heart will pull your energy back like a magnet. And committing to the internal, to your heart, the energy moves up and down and around and around. And just feel how the internal energy activates your space. By looking within, you start to create in a whole new way. The heart creates this circle around you. So imagine just hitting the heart like a gong and letting that frequency ring. Feel that peace and harmony. And as you come back and open your eyes, okay.
Okay. Well, that was a good way to set space. Thank you so much. I'm going to dive into, I see already some info in the chat, and I'll just encourage everyone, as you are inspired or have questions or a thought, feel free to put that in the chat as they come up. We will get to them. I might not answer, we might not go right to them, but put them in there and we will come back to them. So I am going to just start us off with some of the nuts and bolts of Kim's new book, because that's what we're celebrating. So, you know, somebody already said this book would be a gift whenever it was released, right? It just so happens that the time that we find ourselves in now that this book has arrived is just incredibly special. It's no secret to any of us. We're being sent so many clear, direct messages that our current way of life on this planet is not working. And we make things so difficult in our minds. And just thinking about what we just experienced, you know, none of those stories that we tell ourselves in our minds are actually true. They're just stories that we choose to treat as truth. So I think, you know, even just taking a moment to get back in touch with yourself and your own energy, it does change pretty quickly. So the book is also a gift because it tells the life story of a person who was overtaken by multiple illnesses, hardships, and events that were debilitating. And frankly, after knowing Kim 15 years, I was just reading the book and I couldn't, the first read was all on, oh my gosh, there's so much I don't know about her. But there was so much about her story that just made sense. And it actually made it easier to understand the work through her life story. So from poverty to multiple diseases to abuse and toxic relationships, you know, any of these things could have caused Kim to turn to addiction or any other form of escape or numbing of the senses. But instead, to release herself from being overtaken by all of that chaos, Kim discovered that by focusing on the heart and bringing in spirit to the body, that she was able to transform her energy. And she's been sharing that talent and her EnergyWorks method and the tools with the EnergyWorks method to transform other people's lives through her life's work as a coach, a healer, and now author. So perhaps one of the biggest takeaways from the book is also the simplest. When we connect to our heart and then speak and create from our heart, we can transform our reality, sometimes instantly. It's actually easier to create from our heart than from our mind, we just haven't been taught how to do it. And so Kim's book lays the foundation for understanding her work. And I think you may know this from some of the information she's shared, but I didn't realize it, even though it came in my book. When you actually purchase the book, you receive guided tools as well. There's a PDF and there's a video that actually shows how these energy loops move, how to clear your energy, how to clear other people's energy that's been dumped into your space, and how clearing that will allow you to get in contact with who you truly are, enabling you to transform your chaos into creativity. So as I mentioned at the beginning, I've been a client and friend of Kim's for 15 years. And although I've always felt how transformational her work is, the book really helped my brain understand, even though we talk a lot about not getting in the mind, it was really great to understand sort of what my heart has known. And sometimes it's hard to put this kind of work, I think, into words. So as I kept reading it, I was thinking, of course, this makes so much sense. But yet I'd never read anything like it before. So, you know, she tells her own life story, she tells client stories, she demonstrates how the energy work transforms lives. And now she's provided the tools that are so simple to practice for all of us. And you just got to witness one of them. So through the month of December, when you purchase the book, you'll receive the highly visual, colorful, interactive EnergyWorks method ebook that provides in-depth graphic detail of all the steps discussed in the book. So again, I'm just so honored to celebrate this book with all of you. And for any of you that don't already know Kim, one of the things that she says and that is on her website is our energy creates everything around us. It's kind of a transformative statement in itself. Our energy creates everything around us. So if you can think of a moment in your life when you were aware that your energy affected either a personal experience you were having, or that your energy actually shifted an experience for others around you, maybe your family, maybe people you work with, maybe friends. If you're inspired, you know, go ahead and share that in the chat. Oh yeah, and the person talking, I just saw that in the chat. Can you tell us how you know Kim? Yeah, so I originally got introduced to Kim because I was very unhappy in my previous career, and a colleague at work just said, I just had the most amazing session with this woman who reads energy. And I said, what? And she said, you'll love it. Just call her. And I said, okay, great. And I'm like, how does that even work? And over the phone, and how is that possible? And it was just that first session that I was like, I really honestly don't know what just happened, but my life is changing in this moment, and it started to change. And over those 15 years, she has helped me transform my life completely. And anytime I see somebody that is stuck in their own life and they've kind of done everything they can with their brain or meditation or whatever, I'm like, you just got to call Kim. And then they have the same experience. They're like, I'm not sure what happened, but everything is different now. So yeah, that was 15 years ago. And I'm not going to give you my story because this is about Kim, but I have had, I got out of a toxic relationship. I switched careers, moved homes, and and just realized like it's actually just really simple if you just create your own space and stop taking on everybody else's. Okay, a couple more things. So again, for those of you that don't know Kim, she's a transformational life coach, healer, author, and founder of the EnergyWorks method. So she clears stuck energy to help her clients bring in new energy, revitalize their goals, and create more than what they even know they can create. And she'll talk a lot about the unknown and getting comfortable with the unknown, because the mind thinks it has a plan, but the spirit and the heart are different. So she helps activate that which already resides within us by providing tools for her clients to connect, communicate, and co-create their lives in relationship with what she calls the greater whole. So I am going to put Kim's website and the book links in the chat. And then I want to get to some of the comments in the chat. And then we're going to get into some of the excerpts in the book and some questions for Kim. I'd love to just start by having you say a few words, of your own words about what you mean from chaos to creativity. So can you just share how you define chaos, how you define creativity, and kind of how they're related?
Yeah, I think we can all relate with chaos, especially now, because it seems like all of us have ADD or ADHD. And what chaos is when our attention is so focused on the external, so focused on the threats or what's happening in the space. And so being externally focused, puts us in a survival mode. And so when we see a threat, we start to react. And when we start to react to that threat, then we constantly keep outward. Then we start to feel that fear and anxiety. And whatever you're focused on, you actually have this exchange of that energy within your space. And so part of chaos is, we don't know what to focus on because there's so many pictures bombarding us that now we don't even know what's true. Can we trust the news? What's going on? And then we don't know how to read. Then we feel overwhelmed. And then we feel hopeless. So it takes us down this rabbit hole by being externally focused. For example, I have this newer client and she has the perfect home, the best job, a husband she loves, but she's so alone. She's so sad because her attention is like micromanaging, focusing on the external, making sure everything's organized, obsessive. And she's put so much energy in making her life so perfect, but she is sad and alone and empty inside.
And creativity, and then the relationship between the two.
Creativity is when you start to place your attention within your heart. And what I mean by heart, by placing it there, the heart creates in relationship. It actually sees from wholeness. And the moment you start to turn inward, it's like turning the lights on in your home. Because what happens is it starts to bring its source, God. And by bringing that in, now you are connected to your creativity, that you have this unlimited access to all things. And so it also brings in your ability to connect with Mother Nature. And Mother Nature is like that feminine side of God. It is how we bring in things into form, how we move energy in, how we connect with the earth. And those two start to overlap within our heart, creating something I call the greater whole. And that greater whole is a space. It's that space where the unknown comes through. And by focusing it there, it's like what happens is now we don't see in duality anymore. We start to see in a whole new way. And we don't think about, I want this because I don't have that. And so by focusing within, what naturally happens is the energy starts to fill you up and you start to know who you are because you already are that diamond light. And by focusing here, you start to experience it. And then you start to clear the energy off you that's not yours, that has been programmed into your space by others, that we just step in, we don't even mean to, and now we're depressed. And so now you get to start to experience your life from the greater whole.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll get to this in one of the questions I have around the chapter that's on what you call backspace, and we'll define that for everybody. But one of the other things that I thought was really interesting in relationship to these two words is this concept that you can use that chaos actually as fuel for your creativity. And so we'll get back to that in a minute. But I do want to go to some portions of the book and break a few things down for people who haven't had a chance to read it yet. So, as we see so often in our society, we think of something that's causing us pain and we seek escape from the pain, right? It's often through things that actually numb us out or feel like indulgences, and we think those things are going to give us pleasure, but it's usually pretty fleeting. We focus on things outside of us and we give our energy away without even recognizing that we have the ability and the power to shift our experience by working to transform our energy. So I'm going to read an excerpt from your book, which is on page 85. Our energy is our greatest resource. It is the source of power that we need to learn how to use so that we can accomplish our goals or create our intentions. You can't create or destroy energy, but you can change it. So in each chapter of your book, you provide client stories that are examples of how you've helped people transform their energy. And I'm just wondering, Kim, can you share maybe one story tonight of just how you teach people to change their own energy? I mean, I think this was something that was critical for me, is that, I turned to you when I really need help getting unstuck, but then really you helped me train myself how to do it so that I need to rely on somebody else less, right? And so I'm curious, and I know this is part of the tools that you share as well, and how we kicked off this meeting. But if you could just share a client story of how you teach people how to change their own energy, that would be great.
Yeah. So one client of mine, she had a lifetime of being trained by a narcissist, a mother that was a narcissist. And so, when you're living with a narcissist, you're trained very early on to keep your attention on that person. And because of it, she became a fantastic codependent and continued to continue to give it all away. So really, in her life was just total chaos. And because she always gave it away, when she felt fear, it's like you put your target onto a narcissist and you keep it there because you feel like you may get attacked. And when that feeling comes up and that fear, you start even giving more. So it actually feeds the narcissist. And then you get into this duality in the dynamic. So a part of helping her is, first, we started to identify the entanglements in her life where she was in this automatic response of totally giving it all away. And it was very hard to break, to place her attention within, first of all, and then to bring her energy back. It's simple to bring your energy back when you move within. It's just being aware, a little shift of somebody like me moving into the space, identifying, here's where you're stuck, here's where your energy got stuck in time and space, or even through that genetic line. And by looking at that and being aware of it, it unleashes her energy. When she started to commit to herself, everyone around her went into chaos because now she wasn't doing everything for them. So now she's gotten out of that toxic relationship with her mother, has completely set boundaries. She's gotten out of a very toxic relationship with a husband who was extremely narcissistic. Now she's moving into her own home, creating a whole new life, creating beyond what she knew. And when you can start to be in relationship with the heart starts to lead you in a place that you could never imagine. Because a lot of times, I'll ask a client, the very first thing is, what's your intention? And what is it you want? What is it you don't want? But it's never about the intention. It just gives us the edge of the space, like the bookends, to see how they're divided. And then we're moving inward so they occupy space. Most people don't occupy their space. And when you do, change happens.
Awesome. Well, good transition to where I'm going to take us next, which is chapter 7 of your book. So not surprisingly, that chapter is titled Open to the Wisdom of the Heart. And so much of our time is spent in our minds, thinking, reacting, often overthinking and overreacting. And while some forms of meditation are aimed at quieting the mind, people often just sit down and notice how busy their minds are, and then get frustrated because they can't quiet their mind. So your EnergyWorks method trains us how to focus on our heart. And even Western medicine has scientifically proven that our heart can be our key to transforming our health and our lives. So I'd like to read another excerpt from chapter 7. This is on page 85. The heart is the electromagnetic center of the body. Its magnetic field is 5,000 times stronger than that of the brain. By its very nature, it seeks to be in relationship with the brain. That is why it's so important to use the heart to create our intentions. When we put our brain in charge, it tries to overtake or separate from the heart, putting us in duality. But the heart wants unity and will bring together the energy fields of the physical body and the subtle energy of spirit. So Kim, can you speak to the relationship and kind of how it works between the mind, the heart, the body, and the spirit?
Yes. So I start with the mind because that's where we're at. And so we just kind of observe what the mind does, and everyone can experience how the mind takes us out of our space. I always say the mind creates in a line. And what does that mean? It creates in duality. And so, it focuses outward, it focuses all over the place. And the mind has to do with this realm, this third dimension realm, where it's about here in this realm, space, how we navigate space, how we navigate time. So that's how the mind thinks. It either thinks future, past, or positive, negative, or up, down, and then it starts to just see one side. And if you're looking just from one side, you see the person on the opposing side as the threat. You see the red or blue as the problem. And so by being in our mind and just being aware of what it naturally does, just that awareness alone can mean, okay, I'm in duality. And by anytime you're in duality, just validate that. This is great. I'm in duality, because that awareness can make that shift to start to think about how the heart creates. And how the heart creates is where there is no break. There is no separation of future and past. What happens is when you occupy the heart, which I call the now, when you're in that space, it's a unified field. It brings these in relationship. Or, this is where you can experience too, maybe you're in a relationship and you take action, you're always planning, you're always doing, and then your partner is just sitting on the couch and doesn't do anything. And because when we create anything, whether it's relationship or our work in duality, you start showing up on one side, they show up in another side, because energy wants to become whole ultimately. It tries to balance, but we ultimately want to focus within our heart. So we are coming in, being whole. And when you're whole, then the other person shows up, they get in the body. Otherwise, what happens is if you're a codependent, you will always find a narcissist. Or what will happen is if you overreact and become so action oriented and you think you're getting all your goals and you're trying so hard in effort, this doesn't work, because then people check out, they disassociate, and it leaves you abandoned. So it's very important. EnergyWorks, the tools are something you do in the moment, but they're not meant for you to do with any effort, no try, no do, just be. That's why we want to move our energy vertically, because that is who we are. We come from source, we come from the earth, and that in the body creates unlimited possibilities.
Yeah, and this concept of the electromagnetic fields, I mean, I do think that the fact that it has been proven, and that Western medicine is getting their arms around it and saying that gosh, it's really great if you can, take care of your heart, but then they just tell you to take deep breaths, right? And so there's so much more happening there that a lot of us just haven't been in touch with, and there's not a lot of information out there in our society about it, unless you've been studying yoga or other types of traditions that might teach similar types of work. But what I really like about your methods, Kim, is that they are very simple, and I don't have to sit there in the moment and go, okay, what did she say I was going to do? It's just, it becomes innate after a while. So speaking of articles, when I was reading Kim's book, I got really interested in that statement about the magnetic field being 5,000 times stronger than that of the brain. And I kind of went down the rabbit hole on the internet and started reading a bunch of articles. And so I wasn't going to put too many in here, but this is one article I just put in the chat, from Psychology Today, just talking about what we just talked about. But again, where they leave off is they're like, okay, so you're out of balance, take some deep breaths. And that is always good to do. It's always good to take a few deep breaths, but there's so much more you can do. So Kim, a question that probably many of us have is like, how the heck did you even figure all this stuff out? I mean, I know you're an intuitive. I know you see things and feel things and experience things that are not accessible to the majority of us. But how did you see the energy loops move through time and space? Can you share that experience with us?
About 2008, it was maybe 2007, I was doing my graduate program to become a counselor. And I was doing some meditation courses in these two different places. And they had some good tools. Grounding was one of them. But I experienced, it was like I was always hiding going in, because such toxic relationships, they throw people out. It was like at a place that was supposed to be so peaceful, it was terrifying. And so I decided I'm not gonna even do this. And so I went home and I focused on my heart. And then I asked God, okay, God, what is it that you want me to bring in and through? I saw these fields starting to overlap, like these circles, like these, and I call it the blueprint of creation. And where they overlap, it creates this movement, this loop of energy movement. Because this is how I read. When I look at people, I look as their heart open. If their heart's open, these fields start to overlap. So when I see a person and their loops are not overlapped, it means they're disconnected. They don't have a connection above, or they're disconnected with a planet, which would mean then that they're not able to manifest things. They can't bring things into reality. So the loop is actually a way to navigate through space and time, of how to be here in a new way, of how to create in wholeness. And this is what it looks to me on the internal. And when you just place your heart there, those circuits activate and you create from the greater whole. But you'll be able to identify where you're stuck, how it happened, and to quickly adjust.
As you were sharing that, just what it reminded me of is I've been to so many different workshops, and certainly there were moments where I was like, this is not sitting right, but they know better than I do. So I am going to put my own self aside and not listen to that and listen to them. And so that's all, it's exactly what you're talking about getting into duality, not being connected to my heart, not trusting my heart. And so it's just interesting to reflect on some of those moments. And then the other ones where you're just, that you're talking to the right person at the right time, and that there's that, as you described it, when you kicked off the setting of the space, that vibration that you put out and then kind of gets matched back to you. So I want to go to a couple terms that you use frequently. And I imagine for the people that have joined us that have worked with you, they've heard you use these two words quite a bit. They're also in your book. And it was really actually helpful, even though we've been talking for so many years. And I've always known what you meant by the words backspace and pictures, and we're going to define them the way you define them in your book. But for some reason, having them in the book and reading them there, I was like, yes. It's like I already knew, but I couldn't put it into a sentence before. So chapter 2 is focused on backspace. And then, of course, throughout the book, you refer to pictures. So before I read another excerpt, I want to define both of those words, and I pulled these directly from your book. So pictures represent a certain moment in time when energy gets stuck. And then backspace, I love this description, is like a storage shed where you place all your old memories, holding on to ideas because you think you're going to need them in the future. And I know this is not part of this chapter, but you have a chapter on how objects can have vibrations, and we can put our vibrations into objects, and so can other people. So I think of that storage shed, and often we can put those old memories into that object and then carry that object around for a lifetime, thinking you're going to need it, or that it gives you some stability. So then you also said, what is in a person's backspace is any moment in time when they experienced pain, trauma, fear, and anxiety that caused their energy to split from their body, causing them to stop existing in that moment. So again, you can see where like the pictures and the backspace are related. And so the excerpt I want to read is from chapter 2 on backspace. It's pages 20 through 21. And I thought the whole chapter is incredibly powerful, but this particular statement really, really moved me. The moment we formulate an opinion of ourselves, whether based on our own assumptions or the assumptions of others, we trap our energy. Worse, once you become resigned to a negative opinion projected onto you by another person, you give up hope and you get into agreement with this false reality that keeps you isolated and in despair, full of self-doubt and self-loathing. And no matter what you do, you're unable to move beyond it. So you continue to play it out in your life. That picture then becomes the self-sabotaging block in the road that prevents you from moving forward. The truth is that we are not our pictures, and we have the ability to change and transform our pictures, creating a new life story. If we can understand what the feelings and observations of the negative events that occurred in our life are really trying to show us, then we can embrace them and resolve the issues they represent. Thanking them for what we learned from them and the strength we gained from being able to resolve them. So I'm sure many of us have heard the concept of like how you look at your traumatic experiences and thank them for the lesson. It's a very challenging thing to do, but that's the element that you're referring to here. And then finally, you say the backspace will continue to create situations that will play out certain energetic patterns until you've mastered the lesson you came here to learn and have freed your energy from that particular picture so that you can move on. So Kim, I'm going to go back to you and ask you to talk a little bit about our backspace energy and provide maybe another example or story of transforming backspace energy. And this is what I was referring to earlier about how that chaotic energy can be used as fuel to create our intention and what our heart truly wants in our life. So over to you.
Yeah. So here's a good client example. This client came to me a few years ago, and she was doing commercials, but she was unemployed most of the time, and she really wanted to be in feature films. And so, but there was so much fear, so much anxiety. Even when she was on a job, she'd be shaking, and here she's the cinematographer. So it created so many problems, and it overtook her world. And so when we started to do sessions, started to look at not only the pictures she had, most of her pictures were projected onto her by her parents. And so she just resigned to these pictures as truth. And we started to clear those pictures, unleash that energy, kind of move it through the heart. And, but also the backspace continued to come up, like, you're not going to get a job. It's never going to happen. And she would see everyone outside of her space getting the job around her, and she wouldn't. Then what happened is we started to really clear the genetic line. She would be vibrating, with this like shaking, not knowing what to say, losing her words, losing the information. And when we really were able to identify big pictures, like in that storage shed, of where her energy was trapped, and this competition with, the sisters and between the parents, then so much energy unleashed started to move through the heart. And then I was tired of all these pictures, and I said, you know what? You are going to be on the Game of Thrones. You're going to be filming. And she's like, what's the Game of Thrones? And so, since I loved it, and sure enough, it's like she got an opportunity to interview, and they said, no, you don't have the job. So this is the backspace saying, no, there's still more energy kind of in that shed, something you still need to confront. And I'm like, respond, because our response creates the reality. So I'm like, respond as if you got the job. And so sure enough, 3 weeks go by, it was a month actually, and she got the job. And then after that, and this is what's funny, is now 2 years later, the list is long of all these feature films. But every time what happened is they said, oh no, you didn't get the job. And we were laughing because, oh no, we got the job. We have the job, and you got the job. And so we just looked on that timeline, and it was a week this time. So when you start to move into owning your space and occupying it, it means that you can have things. What happens initially, and what happened with her, is she wanted something because she didn't have it. And she would swing back and forth between kind of the bookends. But as we move through the journey of the heart, that would get closer and closer and closer. So now it's just a veering, a slight swing. When you own and occupy your space, it means you're bringing your creative energy in. And by doing that, you own it, you have it, so shall it be. So we ultimately want to really thank the backspace, because it's hard starting out, because if we want a reality and that doesn't happen, then we get upset and we get mad. But it's never about that. It's really about getting your energy in, filling up, knowing who you are. And then you start to create from the unknown.
Thanks, Kim. That's an awesome story. I know you've got a lot more than that one. So I want to open it up to everybody that joined us. And, I encourage people to put information in the chat, but does anybody who is nervous about speaking, would definitely encourage you to say something. Anybody who is inspired to share a story of something that they have transformed, or if there's something that you're struggling with right now in real time, that we could talk about and work that you'd be interested in doing. I am going to stop talking for a minute and see if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, share a story, or
share something they created.
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me about that. Yeah, any creations anybody has made. Kim inspired me to create some paintings, but
well, I'd like to share something that I've really benefited from working with Kim. And there was something that struck me about, like, where you see it yourself, right? You have to see it. And I think it really helps when you have somebody to witness you and see it for you. And I think that's one of the things that's really helped me in making changes when I've worked with Kim, is that she will say, I see you. We've done that exercise with each other, Kim, where we're like, we see each other doing these things. And just like, I saw you being able to take over your website and all this great, digital marketing you've been doing. It's like, and I think that that's helpful, whether it's, working with somebody like Kim, but maybe having partners in your life where they see it for you too, because I think that's part of the witnessing and like creating that loop in your life of making it actually come to be. So I just wanted to share that that's been really helpful.
And that's really good, Melanie, because, part of chaos, what I see chaos to be, like the black, is it's just something, it's like soil. It's like a piece of land where it's all potential and it can become anything. And when you put a seed there or put a picture there, then it starts to activate, and then you get in relationship with it, and then you bring it into the greater whole. So that's a really, it's very powerful, because a lot of times people don't have the pictures. They were never seen accurately. And by seeing who they really are and the light they are here to be, and that everyone is a creator, and they can, see where the chaos is and move it and transform it and create something with it. And yeah, so thanks, Melanie, for sharing that.
Yeah, and I think that conversation or that seeing that thing, it, as we know, it also, like that soil, it activates the backspace, and it's like, okay, here's what you need to compost to bring that energy into what you want to create instead of what's holding you back. But it's like you have to sort of get the picture and then, start some connection with that. And then that, brings up the things to transform if there's something in the way of it. And it's a powerful process.
Thanks for helping bring it into form. Melanie is an amazing, web, what is it called? Wireframer and digital person. She's amazing in so many ways. So
say, Kim, that I am so proud of you for putting this book out into the world. I know how long you have been working on it and all of the process that you have gone through over the years. And I've known Kim for almost 30 years now. This has like been a long haul, and it's just so amazing to see not only what you have become, but how amazing your journey has been. And I'm just so grateful that I've been able to share this with you. So.
Well, Tom, I just wanted to validate, this is Tom's book. He wrote The Missing Piece. You can get it on Amazon, and it's amazing.
This is my creation recently, anyway. So.
Yeah, so that's his creation.
Thanks for the plug.
Thanks, Tom.
Hey, Kim, it's Mary.
Hey, Mary. Thanks for joining.
I was listening, and something that struck me that I've never thought about before is just sort of the negative talk that we all have. And I want to make sure I'm in understanding the perspective on how you deal with that is then what lessons have you learned from that versus it being negative self-talk? It struck me as very powerful to turn it on its head, versus beating yourself up. So anyway, that's what I took away. Is that the right way to think about it, or how you would articulate it?
Yeah, that negative self-talk, it is a part of duality. So a lot of times to get to center, I'll look at what I don't want or what I've said about myself, and I'll just go to the complete opposite because that's what the mind kind of does. And then just going into the heart, it dissolves it. So you're actually transforming it by moving it here because, that picture that, or that thought that you have, if you start to have a conversation with that thought, now you really start going down the rabbit hole. And it's a picture. Actually, what happens is thought is one thing, then you have an opinion of that thought. And so it starts pressing all these pictures together. Now you have to clear all these pictures as opposed to just seeing that thought. And even if you moved it through the heart and transformed it to what picture do I want? A lot of times when negative thoughts come up, it means that there's an ending in your life. And when there's ever an ending, there's a new beginning. It's like in nature, you'll see something die and right next to it, something come alive. So it means that a lot of times when these thoughts come up, you're actually releasing them from your space. They're not even real, but we feel things that come up that we want to let go. And if you can validate, wow, this is awesome, it's coming up and out. And now you're saying bye. So now something new can grow. So it's moving the energy.
Yeah, well, that's great. It's a great perspective. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Thank you.
Something about your book.
Yeah.
Am I on the video?
Yes.
Oh gosh, I can't see what I look like. Oh, how horrifying. Okay, I'll think about the book. Kim, I'm so moved by your personal story in the book. And I'm also moved by how down to earth. It's a spiritual book, but you're so down to earth. I mean, talking about the city dump and some of the hardest places in your life. I think that is just so moving that you have shared all of that. And the time saver story and how you used to clean up your dad's dash of his truck. This is really powerful stuff. And I think, so many people are going to read your book and be helped by your personal story. And then when you connect that to your own personal methods, I mean, it's just incredible. So yeah, I'm so proud of you and I'm so moved by your book. And I know it's going to move a lot of people. And
well, Jenny was in the book. Jenny, it was in the rough times.
yes.
And,
very.
gang fights and,
yes.
white supremacy, all kinds of things. And, when there was this one gang fight and there were people getting shot, and we went up to her house. And I don't know if you have that little poem that you want to read, but it was like a way of just transporting ourselves out of that space and time because it was traumatic.
Oh, that's right. I was with Kim when I wrote one of my first little poems. Through a bowl, I see infinity. Sky has swallowed me. And that's just a little tiny poem. But
and Jenny is an award-winning poet. She's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, meeting Kim transformed my life. And so it just makes sense to me that she's transforming so many lives now.
Thank you for sharing, Jenny.
Thank you, Kim.
And
so
did I hear that right, Kim? Kim and Jenny, that you wrote that poem after a pretty rough gang fight type of incident?
Actually, yeah, kind of, yes. We can, yes.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
true.
so you just think about the place you both were in your lives at that point, like
Mm-hmm.
To have access to something just completely different um, than what your mind and body must have been thinking and feeling at that moment in time is like a perfect demonstration of connecting to heart and spirit and a different energy, right?
Mm-hmm. So true. So true.
So I have something to say. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay. So what I wanted to share is so that people know this for their own families. Kim has basically, and I don't want to get too emotional, and my son is about to walk in the door. He's 21. She basically has saved my life and my son's life. And I can't underscore that enough. Her work with me, but in my son in particular, who I was most worried about during a very, very chaotic and traumatic time for both of us. She has done such tremendous work with my son, so much so that she is on his speed dial. And he calls her and texts her regularly, and she has always been there for him. And she has taught him her methods, so much so that he has mastered them much more quickly than I have. And she really has brought us to a point of thriving. And so I highly recommend this book, not just for your individual self, but for any family members or friends who have children, whatever the age may be, that are suffering trauma or are in chaos that need help coming through those times. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
I love you.
You too.
I think I will start to wind us down. Kim, I was debating whether to share the painting that I created today, inspired by your book. But this was to represent chaos. And this one was representing creativity surrounded by chaos. So I just did that today as we got ready for this. And, you know, Kim talks a lot about blue and green colors and gold. And then the diamond light and white. And so those were the colors that I, you know, when I did it, Kim, I'm someone who's in my mind a lot, even when I paint. And I just went down to the canvas and I thought of you and I looked at all the paint colors and I just for a moment said, okay, source, what do you want me to create? And I just looked at the colors and started stirring them, and that's what happened. So I was like, that's what I should be doing when I'm painting from now on, because the way I was doing it before, I'm like, I gotta think of something, then what am I gonna do? And every time I try and think about it, the paintings are awful. And every time I just do something and don't think about it, it's like some of my much more powerful stuff. So
Yeah, and I think that creativity, no matter what it is really such the deep relationship with source and the planet, and it's where everything, it is where your energy comes alive, and it's beautiful.
yeah. Okay, I think I am going to wrap us up, but feel free to cut me off if someone has something else inspiring or scary to share. Just unmute yourself and hop in. I do want to know if anyone has any ideas of, I think at the beginning, somebody said, oh, I'm joining to learn, you know, how do you do a virtual book launch? And I said, I don't know, we're just making it up. So, so we'll see how it goes. But if anybody has other ideas of, you know, how to share Kim's book or get it out there, I put our emails in the chat. Please feel free to email either one of us your ideas. And just a friendly reminder that when you buy the book this month, you get the both visual tools and also some video tools. So kind of gets you some different ways of connecting with this work rather than just reading a book. So encourage you to do that in the month of December. And then Jill, thanks for mentioning I think it makes a great gift. I already gave one to one of my friends, and it's such an easy read. It's just like each chapter is like her story, client story, the method, and then she just weaves it all through. So it's very, like I said, the first time I read it, I was like just devouring her life story. But now I'm going back through it a second time and pulling out like the definitions of backspace and pictures and all those things that I've heard her say over the years, and just kind of letting that sink in a whole new way. So I think that wraps us up. And I just really appreciate everybody making time, especially those of you that are on a much later time zone.
Great. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it, all of you. And Suzanne, it's good to see you and everyone. I can't see everyone's name here, but I really appreciate you guys. And thank you so much.
We love you.
Yeah. Great. All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Kim. Lots of love.
Thank you, Val, so much for hosting this. And you did a great job. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure. It's so fun.
Thank you for joining the virtual book tour, and you can find me at KimBellisimo.com. And to get the book, go to Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or Book Depository. Thank you so much, and in greater whole.